que estamos en YouTube Live. Let's see if this works. Okay, apparently now we're on YouTube Live, which was not the plan, but it's how we are. Well, how are you? Thank you for being here. Thank you, Silvana, for being here. I'm going to just unmute your mic. Give me a one.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Hi.
hear Silvana. How are you?
Hi, Silvana.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining
This
us.
is
I am Jimena Berecochea.
Jimena, Salvador Alanis, and well, this is our fifth talk. It is a Thursday talk about photography with Silvana, and we're very happy to have Silvana. And we have a long relationship with her. I mean, we know her for a while, and we're very honored to have her as part of the
Thank you for having me.
project for ICE. As we did the last time, we're gonna do we're gonna show a presentation that we did with Silvana, an interview that we did with Silvana, and then after this presentation, we will have a Q&A session. For this, something, I mean, the list that we have now on Zoom is, I mean, we know almost every one of you, so I'm pretty confident. Last week, we had a beautiful thing that happened. Somebody got into the Zoom and hacked us and started to do like crazy things with the sound. If you didn't have the chance to see it, it's really remarkable. It's on our Facebook feed, and more or less in the minute which
Minute 17.
Minute 17 of Laura Barron's talk, so you can find there all this mess that she did. So that's why I muted all the microphones, but I will release them for the Q&A. But anyways, if you have any comment, any question, the chat is available. It's open.
So you could either write your question or comment on the chat, or you could raise your hand and we will unmute you and you can talk with Silvana.
Yeah, but I mean, the good thing is that I mean, we're here. We're live on Facebook. On YouTube. The idea was to be on Facebook, but for whatever reason, is not working properly. But yeah. So we will see this interview first, and then we will talk with Silvana. So just give me 1 second and I'll do this. Mm-hmm. Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Salvador Alanis. I'm one of the founders of the Institute for Creative Exchange. This week we're going to have a conversation. It's been quite a time, no?
I am stuck in Minneapolis.
Yeah, but it's great talking to you. And well, first, one of the questions that I would like to ask you first. Tell me about your career, because you started doing like to work on with the body and taking photos of portions of the body, very fine and like big, like blowouts of skin tissue and things like that. and suddenly you are now doing a lot of things with the landscape and things that are more like unveiling things in the landscape. But I don't know if you can tell me first, how do you see your development and your path in the photography in general terms?
Well, I was working with the body a lot, and I did not start doing like these things that you are describing. I started like just nudes, and then little by little it became more abstract, and little by little I started focusing more on details. And at the time I was reading a lot of theory about like psychoanalysis and Lacan, and I was thinking about identity and all that. So so I think it was kind of like a critique of visual determinism, about making my own classification of physiognomic, like general things. I was making my own classification of things that rejected the control and identity and unity and perfection. And that's why it's a critique of visual determinism, I think,
Okay.
of how, I mean, of this standardized way. I was thinking a lot. Have you seen the way they used to catalog people by physiognomic traits and all that?
Yeah.
It was this Bertillon was a French guy who used to do it. That's the kind of things I was thinking about. It's maybe not obvious in the work, but my work is always like, it looks very pretty and it's very visually pleasant, but I'm always thinking about this big theoretical stuff in the background.
It's very interesting. Yeah, because he had this idea of classifying and even like defining some traits of the character, no, of how, I don't know, like hysterical women should have like the hips, like wide hips and very narrow, like an.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a kind of it's called visual determinism, and it was a way of classifying people like criminals. And also it's a discriminatory practice.
Absolutely, yeah.
Criminals or people that were thought to be crazy, and different kinds of classifications, no? So I was thinking about these things, and it was my way of kind of doing that visually, doing a critique of that visually. And it's always been like, I think something important to me is that I like my images to look for, there's kind of like two levels. So there's this first level where it's straightforward, but then there's a second level where if you know what the work is more about, then there's this second level of reading where maybe things that weren't apparent or visible become visible. Yeah. And I think that is something that is still in my work, even though the work is very different. This kind of unveiling, I think is a trait that has continued.
Yeah, for me that was one of the things that I really loved about your work, is this thing that you're really discovering and unveiling, as you said. You start like discovering what's going on in the image, and it's like going beyond the evident or what it's there. You have to. It's kind of like having a mystery that you have to, with the image and with your ideas, to build on that, and I think that's really great.
And in the body work, it was also like a physical geography is what I ended up, and that's why the work, when I showed in the museum, it was very big.
Yeah.
Because the idea was to make it a landscape, like, and make the viewer, like, it doesn't, I mean, if you see the small work that works printed small, it's very different than when you see it in a large format, and they were really big, those prints. Some were like 3 meters and some were like 2 meters by 2 meters, and they were really big. So really the change of scale in that work was very important for this, to transforming something that you normally don't look at, for this idea of making it into a body landscape, if you like, but it's more than that, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought it like, I used to think it was like, maybe like a map of some kind of strange identity trait. I was very interested in changing the identity traits into something else, you know?
I think it's very interesting. And so it's, do you see like a connection from those photographies to these ones that the new ones that where you work with the landscape, like the ones on whiteout? Is there like a connection or not really?
I'm not sure. I think the only connection that is for me very obvious is that for me, again, I think they are very beautiful, and I am attracted. Some people might criticize me for that, but that I'm attracted to make like visually striking, beautiful images. I like to do that, but there's always this underlying second reading, which is like the beauty of the image is obscured by a reality of what I'm thinking about, or another discourse that I want to show. And maybe you only see it if you read the description, or not even in the caption do I put it, but if you read the description of what the work is about. In this case of the whiteout, I am thinking about climate change, and the fact that this particular work was a record-breaking storm in the American Midwest in 2018. It was like the biggest snowstorm ever in April recorded, period, in a place where it snows a lot.
Yeah.
So it was, and people don't think about this. So some people, I saw some people, when I would say to them, the reality is that this is about climate change, and the fact that the warming of the planet, the warming conditions are leading to more moisture in the air, and that increases the precipitation, and that increases the extreme weather events that we have all the time. So it's all connected.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, there is this unveiling of a second layer of meaning, of truth, that isn't necessarily apparent.
That's true, because if you just see the photographs, it has this, as you said, this seduction and this like a formal attraction that the images have, and then you see the context and the subtext, and I think it's interesting because it's especially there's one where you have like a post like in the center of the image, where you have to, it's almost like if you're really discovering the landscape, no, and there's like white space, which is really beautiful, because the subtlety of the image is what is really striking, which is because everything is really subtle.
But it's also like climate change starts appearing. I mean, maybe it's not apparent and it's just a metaphor. But for me, the metaphor is important, and maybe not every viewer will see it. And maybe I need to describe it. I don't know.
No, I think the metaphor first is important, and secondly, I think it works because it's more or less the same as your other work, on which you have the window that says Latino on a sign, and then you start like scrapping the decal inside the window, and you see what is reflected on the other side. No, you start like discovering the buildings and all that, which is interesting. So I don't know, how did you do that? You had the idea of doing the video, and then you took images from the video. What was the process for you for developing that piece?
Yes, I wanted to do the video because I had spent a lot of time in that place. It was some friends of mine that were at they were studying at Central St. Martin's, I think. in London, and their workshop, their, ¿cómo se dice? Su taller, su estudio. They had their studio. They had their studios in this building. So it was like an artist studio space. And there was this window, and they wanted to make it like an art gallery for people that were passing by. So I knew that they were gonna take away the sign. So then we made so then I said, okay, well, I want to film you while you scrape it away, because I had already observed the light, and I thought the reflections were gonna be amazing. And it's exactly this unveiling of the inside outside, the inside projects, you know, scraping away that plane of paint shows you the outside, but shows you the inside, but shows you the buildings, the sky. I mean, it's all about this unveiling. I think there's an unveiling that is a constant in some of my work.
In all your work, I agree, because it's more or less the same. It's the same that happens when you're seeing the photos of the whiteout. No, you're really like discovering different layers. I mean, not only conceptually, as you said, but also visually, you're really discovering the layers of the image, which is super attractive and interesting. I find at the end, the mystery is something that attracts you, no? And when you have there was an old say that about the idea of what makes an image, the attraction of somebody is when you're really hiding the thing, no? When you hide something, you make it really attractive, and it's more or less what happens in a way with your images, that you show a part and then you hide it, which is really...
That's what I wanted to do with the work of the body too. It was to I didn't want it to be obvious what you were looking at as a viewer, so I was hiding that identity. You didn't even know what you were looking at. Is it a landscape? Is it skin? In some places it was obvious it was skin, but in other photos it was really not. No, especially not at the scale, you know, the big scale.
No, and I remember there are some that you feel that they're just geometric figures, almost like a drawing. And then if you pay a little bit more attention, you can start like discovering that is tissue, that is skin tissue or something. But then your first impression is that there's just lines or some sort of geometrical body, but it's how the tissue is built, no? Which is the interesting part. That takes me to this other project that you did in the jail in San Luis Potosí in Mexico. Tell me a bit, how did you get into like going to this jailhouse, and how was it?
That was a very good coincidence because I've always done, you know, work, other work for a living, no? I don't only do art photography, so it was a paid job. And I was going to do an interview. We were filming an interview of that prison was a prison that had political prisoners at some point.
Yeah.
And for some reason that I vaguely remember, I don't really remember very well, we were going to interview one of these people. And so I went there, and the location was in this place, so we had access.
Ah, okay. Is it still active, the prison?
I don't think it exists anymore. No, at the time it was already abandoned.
Ah, okay.
And it's adjacent to what now is I don't know the exact name, but something like that, a new art center, Centro de las Artes de San Luis Potosí. It was an old compound, very big, and they remodeled and they made it into an arts place. I don't know exactly what it is today, the name. But anyway, it was before any of that happened. It was just these ruins. And for context, we went to film in the prison. we didn't do the interview there, but for context, we went to film like the site.
All the
that
B-roll.
was abandoned.
The B-roll for the video.
And then I started walking in the cells and stuff, and I started seeing these crumbling walls with all these amazing like stuff on the walls, and I was like, okay, this is like a project. I want to do a project here. I want to like photograph this.
Yeah.
And so I did. So I asked for permission, and I stayed longer, and I did the work.
I think it's also has again this thing of the layers and the discovery and the like the mystery, because sometimes you see some of the images, it says the first one on your website you have like one image that if you just see it like this, it's not apparent what it is. I mean, it's a wall, but you don't see it as a wall. It's almost like a painting. I mean, it's like my first reaction when I was checking your website is, now Silvana is painting now, because it looks like a painting. But then you see it's saying you have to get into the image and pay attention and then discovering what it is, and it was very interesting.
A lot of them look like paintings, and then something that a lot of people don't know is that in some of them I made like little interventions.
That's it. Okay.
Something, or I made a line. Or I chopped somebody's like face off, or I put a fork somewhere, or stuff like that. I kind of, not in all of them, but in some of them, I kind of messed with it.
Like no, because they're very interesting, and also with pieces of paper, like almost like images and photos and stamps, like on the wall, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, they're like my reinterpretation of an intervention of the icons left behind by the absent occupants. And then I present that like a residue or a trace or a remnant.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, it was almost like an archaeological ruin.
That's what I was going to say, because I don't know if you know that our friend Ulises Mora, you know Ulises, no? The artist, the performance artist. He's working now with archaeologists, and what he's doing is that he's asking archaeologists to do description of archaeological sites for artists to do kind of almost like recreation from the words, from the narrative and the storytelling of the archaeologists, to do something on their own interpretation. And what I felt here is that it's almost like this interpretation in the photos, or the way you frame the photo, it's an interpretation, but at the same time it's like you know exactly where you're going, no? You're trying to see what happened there, but it's not apparent, no? It's something that is like it's always a mystery, no? It's again like a mystery.
Well, I was fascinated by what I found, and then I thought there was like, that's why I thought it was like a little bit like archaeology, because I felt that there were these layers of matter and time, and then it was like someone else's nostalgia. Imagine whoever put that on the wall had no access to the outside, so some of the image was like kind of like their connection between the inside and the outside, or dreams, or I don't know. So it's also kind of like a fragmented psychological landscape in a way, maybe, of the people that were there doing that on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, with all the like the distances and the distances that obviously with the different situations, but it's what happens. I don't know if you're feeling the same, but with the pandemic, you start like seeing your house, with the space where you live, like a space where you're like you start like discovering things, and you start like putting things together in a way that you're like that reflection of your mind. And obviously the people that is confined to a one room, one cell, they start like talking on the walls, no, with all these telling the story with pieces of paper, or even with some lines on the wall, or maybe a hit or something, no, or even stains, no, just how the stains are starting to talk. I think it's pretty interesting and seductive again in something that could be kind of difficult and raw, I think the images are very seductive, which is nice, no? Yeah.
Yes, I think that some people have criticized me for that, but I like it to be visually striking, you know?
I think that's part of the value also, no? I think it's nice to have like a very beautiful image, no? I think that your images are really nice and beautiful, so it's nice to have them, no? Because they're not cosmetic, no? Which could be the problem, no? If they're just the appearance, that's one thing, but there's always something behind the image, which is a nice thing. And just to finish that, I know that you're like in this moment, which is kind of a crossroads for you, but what you're working now with the national systems of creators in Mexico, and also in Minnesota, you have something, no? You have 2 grants. You have a
grant called what's it called? Minnesota State Arts Board Artist Initiative.
Okay.
So I got that I got it. Well, they told me I got it this year.
Okay.
And it's a really nice award.
One question: how do you feel because you have a very particular mix in yourself? You have Italian background and Mexican, and now you're living in the U.S. So how do you feel like yourself now in Minnesota?
Well, right now I'm very confused. Well, first of all, I don't think of myself like I'm living in the U.S. because that was never like the plan or the idea. Right now, I feel like I'm stuck in the U.S. with the pandemic because yes, like because of my partner's work, he got this work here, and we said, okay, let's go. But my idea always, I still have a house in Mexico City, and my idea always was like to spend part of my time here and part of my time in Mexico. And when I got the Mexican Sistema Nacional de Creadores grant, I decided I was going to spend like a lot of my time in the next 3 years in Mexico. Because I wanted to do the project more there than here. And now that has been
changed.
Like it's changed because it doesn't mean I'm going to be here all the time, but for the time being, I cannot travel. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So that's been hard. And being Italian, well, a big part of me Italian. Well, I'm an Italian citizen. I mean, my passport is Italian.
Did you live in Italy or something?
I did. When I was a child.
In from which part?
Milan.
Milan.
In Milan. My father was from Milan. So yes, so I have this Italian background. So it's weird because I never, even though most of my life I lived in Mexico, not all of it, part of it in Italy. Then I never felt 100% Mexican.
Yeah, of course.
And then my father put me in an international school where all the classes were in English. So then, and my friends were from everywhere in the world, not only Mexican. So I've always had this strange, not normal Mexican background, which just added to my never feeling that I fit in.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And then, and now it's hard because I don't feel I'm American.
No, the interesting part is that especially your latest series of images are, I would say, very international. They're not necessarily located with a stamp saying this work is from this particular place. I mean, obviously, if you have the reference of the snow, you know that excludes certain parts of the world. But in general, I mean, when I saw the images, it could be. I mean, I live in Toronto. It could have been here, no, as well.
Yeah.
But it's not because of the theme, but in general the eye or how the composition is. I feel that the images are kind of like global or international, which is interesting. It's good. Because when you define, I was checking your bio, and you define yourself as a multicultural cultural artist.
I do.
Uh-huh.
Because I am not 100% Mexican, but I am also not Italian 100%.
And now living.
And then my education is not like Mexican or Italian.
Uh-huh.
And then
living in another country.
And then living in other countries. And before this, you may not know this because we weren't in touch, but before here we were in Mexico City, but while we were in Mexico City, like in the past 10 years, I lived in Vancouver.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because my partner lived there when we met.
Okay. Nice. Good.
So exactly 10 years ago, I was in Vancouver for like a year and a half, 2 years.
Oh, nice. Very good.
So it's, yeah. And we think that if Trump gets reelected, we're going back to Canada.
That's good. That's wise.
Because I don't think we could do another 4 years of this. Or Mexico. Mexico always. I always want to spend part of my time in Mexico.
Yeah.
That's not a question for me.
It's always an interesting place to be.
Yeah. For me, that's really hard right now. That I was gonna go at the end of March, and I had to cancel that ticket, and I don't know when I can go back.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. Yeah, no, that's very good. Excellent. But Silvana, thank you very much. Thank you for the time, and thank you for participating in the project. It's great talking to you, and it's great to be in contact. Yeah.
So, Silvana, thank you for the interview, Silvana, and well, now we're back, and we're ready for your questions. And I don't know how you feel, Silvana. Do you want to add anything from what you talk on the interview? You have to unmute your mic, Silvana. Sorry.
Do you do it, or she does?
Yeah, no, she can do it herself. Okay.
Unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
No, we can.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was weird to hear me hear what I said that day. It's been enlightening.
So tell me about that. One thing that when we were checking the interview and seeing again your work, it's this thing about the sizes of the photographs, of the images, that because your first work, as you said, there were like really big images of very tiny things, but the images of, for instance, the whiteout images, which are all these winter landscapes and all that. What's the we are having on our store, we're having an 8x10 but size, but what's the original size that you were envisioning for those images?
Well, they're not that big. I think I've made a first edition of prints of that one, and I don't remember if it's 12 by 12 or I think it's 12 by 12 or 13 by 13. Those are square inches, so they're not too big.
Okay.
And it looks nice in that size. I think if it was an exhibition and I was showing it with other work, and then if it was just one of the series, I might make it bigger. But if it's the series itself and all the photos of that series together, then it's nice to have a smaller size like that.
And another question that I had is about the video of this place in South London. Is South London? Yeah.
I don't know if it's the south. Yeah, it is the south of London. Yeah.
South of London, no? And which were like
Road, I mean.
Scratching, like scraping the window, and then you see like that video. Did you show it in in an exhibition or any?
Yes. I don't remember where exactly because that's older work. I had a Jóvenes Creadores grant at the
Okay.
time,
Uh-huh.
and it was shown in the show for the Jóvenes Creadores exhibition at the Centro Nacional de las Artes in Mexico City.
Okay.
But then it was also shown in a gallery somewhere, well, in a couple of galleries. I think it was shown in a solo show. Well, it was not solo, it was a two-person exhibition with Mauricio Alejo in Morelia. And then somewhere else, I'd have to look at my resume. It's a bit older, so, but yeah, it was shown a few times in different places.
No, because I like that piece a lot, and
Yeah.
I was curious just to know. It's funny when you mentioned this thing of the grant for Jóvenes Creadores, for the young artist grant. It's very sad when you are not in that category.
You're not young anymore. Yeah, I know. That's why I can't remember. It's really been a while.
That's right. No, now we're like, as we say in Spanish, peinando canas. Now we have all this one. I have my disguise as Santa Claus with my beard is starting to be like super white. So it's like horrible, but yeah, but no, it's a very good work. I think that
Thank you.
I think it's a discovery, which is.
I think that it has not been shown enough. I think a lot of people don't know my work very well, or don't know it at all, or just remember like the Topografías and the Fisionomía series in Mexico was very well known. But I think that now that I'm in the United States, like nobody has seen anything, nobody knows anything about my work. So it's kind of nice to have this opportunity to show it and to have some people see it and see it with fresh eyes too.
Yeah.
Because
how difficult it is to show the work in the U.S. I mean, you've been showing it in Minneapolis, no? In Minneapolis, you had.
I haven't had that much shows. I mean, I've been in 2 or 3 things here since I'm here. I haven't been here for too long. I've been here for like 2 years, more or less.
Okay, nice.
But as anything, it's hard. And now with the pandemic, it's even harder.
Yeah.
So I think this thing, like what you are promoting with IC Americas and everything is very good. And thank you for having me, because it's very good for having people that really don't know me or my work or my older work or whatever to have a little window into that and my process and stuff. And right now with the pandemic, I just think it's really hard.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes it's difficult just to cross the border, because it's funny how, and this is something that we noticed when we were in Mexico. It was kind of, I think it's in terms of the arts community, it's pretty open to see what's coming, no? So if you have I don't know, an international artist arriving, I mean, I used to have a bookshop. That's something that I was talking in the previous conversations, I think with Fernando Montiel, we were talking about that. And on our bookshop, we used to have writers from San Francisco, from Cuba, from Spain, and doing performances and reading and all that. And it was well received, and everybody was curious, and everybody was really looking for the work and reading. And it's something that I kind of miss when you move from Mexico to other countries. Sometimes it's difficult to integrate your work into the work stream of the community. And I was curious if it's the same. I mean, in Canada, it's definitely something that happens, but I don't know if in the US you find like the same thing.
I think it's really hard. Like unless you, I mean, if you have a lot of like connections, then maybe not. But if you're starting to make them, like it's my case, then it's hard to tell people to see it. You have to enter apply for grants and enter jury competitions where they decline your work and stuff like that. And then maybe sometimes a curator will be interested, and then you have a chance to show your work, but then you show it to one person.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, I don't think since I've been in Minnesota, anybody really knows my work, because I've never done like a public presentation, like a talk like this one with you guys. Like I haven't done that, even though I got a good grant
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
here.
because Pia Elizondo was telling us more or less the same thing.
Yeah,
She was working really hard, and now she's like she's very active, and now she's been having several exhibitions. But it's a process that takes really long, and it's like it's kind of
yes.
painful process. I mean it's possible and it's doable and it happens at the end, but
But I
it's
think it's the same everywhere, because in Mexico, I was in a weird place when I left, because I've been doing other things for a living for many, many years, and having this company and stuff, and of exhibit design, but still something completely separate from art. And that took away some of that focus. Like some people that, peers of ours, people we all have known for many, many years, no? That have just stayed in the arts, like Gerardo
Mhm.
Montiel Clint of one of the previous conversations. He's never stopped doing that, like that. This is his main thing. But some of us others that multitask,
Mhm.
then it's hard to keep being current in the conversation, whether it's even in Mexico City, like some of my work hasn't received enough interest. And I don't think it's because people are not interested. It's because I haven't been so active. So it's also a matter of one inserting oneself again into the conversations, because every day there are more and more younger artists coming up, and there's a lot to keep up with. So
No, definitely.
it's I think it's hard everywhere, but it's definitely harder here, where nobody knows who I am, than in Mexico, where at least I have some national recognition, and it would be a bit easier to
Yes, you
get
have
back in the
the network,
conversations.
no? A network that
Yeah.
supports you and all that. Yeah.
No,
Eh,
but I think it's great that right now you are working in this series, and talking about these two last series that you have with us, that it's Whiteout and Encounters, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you make a link among both, talking about the global warming. For me,
Mm-hmm.
what brings to my mind when I see the images of Whiteout is this introspective experience that arises from walking in the middle of a snowstorm, or just
Mm-hmm.
after the snowstorm has finished, and you know how the snow absorbs the sound, and then together with the hat in your covering your ears, and you can listen to your breathing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really like a very isolated feeling. That's what
Mm-hmm.
brings to my mind when I see those images, no?
Mm-hmm.
But then I see the other ones in Encounters. Yeah.
Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
Traces, it's the one in Shanti,
Encounters.
right?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Encounters, I am
Encounters.
right, yeah. And then you see Encounters that you have these architectures, that it's in the middle of the snow, but it breaks with this feeling that brings the other. This is a very personal interpretation, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, how do you think these two series talk to each other?
I think they could actually merge. I was thinking about bookmaking the other day, and I was imagining a book where I could like juxtapose both things. I mean, it will maybe break with that feeling that you're talking about of being inside the white.
Yeah.
But in a way, I was trying to explore the idea of them talking to each other visually, and how that could be interesting. And I might want to explore that. That's the thing, right? That even though it's finished, it's when
It's
is it really
still,
finished?
Still
yeah,
evolve.
Like,
Mhm.
because
yeah,
you're still
and
working on that one, right? On Encounters, is that right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm working on something that has to do with that one, but it's the thing is that that one is very particular, because the kind of desolation that, or like this isolated subject, weird, uncanny subject, like like that strange facade or a pile of dirt in the middle of the snow or whatever,
Yeah.
are that's a very that's kind of that those are encounters, which is why I called it like that you would only find in the winter.
Yeah.
And right now I'm shooting other stuff, so
Okay.
so I'm not sure how I'm gonna put it all together, or if it has to be part of the same thing. But
That also brings another question for me, because there's obviously an intention and a conceptual background that makes you do a complete series or every series. But do you think you learn about yourself after you finish a work, that you say, okay, this series is complete? Do you learn something new, or everything was what you just thought before doing it?
no, it usually changes. I mean, it depends on the work, but first of all, like I tend to have these ideas in my mind. Then I go out and take a lot of pictures. And then the part that I suffer is to have to edit. I
it's very hard.
hate it.
Yeah.
And then after that process, then it almost always becomes something else. And then I have to revise my ideas and my statement and what I thought. And sometimes I don't revise it. And then people tell me that my statement is not very aligned with images, and they like object. And I'm like, and I don't really want to change it, that much. Then I just say, okay, then it's metaphorical for climate change, if you will. But it's kind of like the things I was thinking about when I was walking.
Yeah.
And taking these images. And as always, I think as any art is always very subjective, and I don't really mind if the audience reacts to it and has other ideas when they see the work. I think that's good.
Do you have the viewer in mind when you're working, or not? It's
not really.
No,
not so
good.
much.
That's good.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing, because we have a group
questions?
here no, we don't have questions, but I'm curious if I would like to give the mic, pass the mic to
Would anyone like to
here
ask something to
yeah,
Federico.
Federico. Now
You have
now
to
I
unmute him.
no, I already gave
Okay.
you should be able to unmute yourselves.
Yes, I'm
I
here.
mute myself.
Good.
I'm here. Hello to everyone. What I would like to hear you more about it is what happens with your identity, with your encounter with identity, and the impression on the wall, such as in the case of the jail and those live impressions. It is like when a bomb explodes and it gets the imprints of the fact into the walls. So in these encounters, observing some of the images, I find that it is like this other way conversation, that something happened and hit the space, and maybe it is those open spaces with the snow, but anyhow is this thing that appears. And I really connecting with the identity factor. How do you see it? How do you live with that encounter of identity and that expression?
I'm not sure I understand the question. You're just asking what is the identity when I encounter which work, like the jail work, or in general?
In general, is I saw your images and there's an encounter between what you find and the space,
okay.
Right? And you talk about identity. So there's something, an identity that becomes expressed, that becomes printed on the walls. There was a guy living on that jail, and his life was printed on the walls, and then you capture that. And in that encounter, something happened to you. As Salvador was saying, you grab those places, you grab those images, those textures, but you find something in them. So what I want to hear is that experience that you have with
Well,
those.
for me, it was kind of like encountering an archaeological ruin. As if I was some kind of archaeologist and you go into this cave and you find these paintings on the wall that may not mean anything for people that are not paying attention, for someone else not paying attention, but I just saw it and my mind kind of exploded, and I just had to start taking photographs. That's kind of how I work. And I react to a space.
Okay.
Even if it's the space of your skin, in the case of my older work, where it's the landscape of the skin, I react to that scape. And then when I'm shooting, I'm truly in the moment. And whether it's the close-up of a pore of your skin or the wall or what I almost cannot see in the whiteness of that landscape, I am truly in the moment, and that's what captures me to shoot.
So then after the fact that you had that moment and that conversation, which is very intimate, what happens with your discovery? With the scheme, you find that space, that spot, you get into it, you reveal it, and then it shows up. That's something that happens with photography. It pumps up, right? Gets discovered and grabs a new identity. So that is why I'm grabbing this concept of identity and between yourself, the moment, and what happens with the work, with the image. There's a transition.
Yeah, there's always a transition, but the work that you make is always like a reflection of what you're thinking about at the time. So the ideas and the things that you are interested in at the time is what makes me want to go into a white snowed field as opposed to taking close up of someone's body, for example. There were different moments in time where I was a different person and I was thinking about different ideas, which is why I was shooting different things, if that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
it makes. Thank you.
We have a question from George Slade. I don't know, George, if you want to ask directly, or do you want me to read it? Whatever you prefer. I mean, you can just unmute your mic and ask it, or should I do it? Okay, good. So he wants to know what learnings you took away from the Opticon Shanti experience in Minneapolis.
But you don't know what that is.
No,
but you can tell us
but you can tell me.
Well, that is a project I made here in Minneapolis. It was January and February of this year. And basically it's a festival that happens on the ice in a frozen lake. And my project was selected and I proposed to make a camera obscura on the ice. So I did it with the help of my partner Charles and George that is asking the question. He helped, and well, a lot of people helped. And what was really fun about it was that we created I don't know if you've seen the camera obscuras that are in seaside, in places that have the sea. They used to be seaside attractions in the Victorian era, and there are still some around. Like in San Francisco, in Santa Monica, in California, in some places in Portugal, like the list goes on and on. And basically it's like a way you put a lens on the top of like a tent-like structure, and it surveys the area around it. So anyway, I did that project and it was amazing. I mean, it was really hard to come up with a design and actually end up building it. And the building in really freezing temperature was really hard, but hopefully I didn't do that much of that. Oh, I lost my headphone. And anyway, what I got out of that was that it was a very cool way to connect with a community here in Minneapolis. We needed volunteers to help. George was the person that helped me get all the volunteers. And it was really fun because I met a lot of other photographers and just the public in general. We had like thousands of visitors over like, I don't know if it was 6 weekends when it was really cold.
That's good.
And it was a good way to connect to the community here.
Sounds very interesting. Yeah, so it's open. So you have the lens on top, and then you have like an open wall to the lake, or that's the idea?
No, it was like a
It's
typical
like
camera
camera
obscura.
oscura
So it's
cameras.
completely enclosed, dark
Okay.
space. But instead of having the lens on one side and having the projection on the wall,
And
the projection was on a
the
table,
on the table. Okay.
on a round table on the, a few meters,
Uh-huh.
not so much from the floor. And you would just look down and see the outside scene. It was like a projector, like looking at a projector. So you see the outside scene reflected in the inside.
Yeah.
But it's kind of magical. It's so analog. It's the oldest analog thing. I mean, that's how photography was started. That the beginning of the history of photography through a camera obscura. That's how it was invented. So it was like a pretty cool, like analog, real time, like it almost looked like video. When little kids would come in, they would try to like swipe on the table.
Yeah. It reminds me.
That was a nice thing to connect. Yeah.
Reminds me a bit like there's a piece that from the 90s that Gary Hill, the videographer, did. Actually, I think it was in San Francisco. It was also like a projector on a table, but at that time that was technology driven.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, projector, and you saw like there were hands and things happening on the table, but it was like really avant-garde. And this is taking exactly the opposite way, the opposite direction, like having something which is part of the history of photography and integrate that into a contemporary experience. It's nice. Sounds very good. You have it documented somewhere, because it's not on
I
your
can
website.
show you my website. I have to. I need help with my website.
No, but maybe if you want, I mean, we would love to, if you send us some documentation.
Sure, I'll send you some photos of it.
Yeah.
We can share it for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. Tatiana, do you have any questions? Tatiana Parcero.
We're very happy to have you.
We're very happy to
Hola,
have you,
Tatiana.
Hi, hola, Silvana.
Hola.
I haven't seen you since.
I know. Like 3 years, I think.
I think we saw each other it was on the opening at the museum, Pedro Meyer.
Yeah, we were there.
Now. And now it's closed.
But it wasn't so much long ago. It was like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe.
Probably, yeah. Probably. Well, hello everybody. But I would like to know a little bit about this new project for the Sistema Nacional. I think that the images of the whiteout are beautiful, are really, really nice. And how do you planning to continue the project, or what is the way that you are planning to address, the continuation of this project?
Well, I am working on that. It's hard because my work, of course, is not documentary. So and I don't want it to be literal. My grant is about climate change, but not in a documentary sense, but trying to talk about these things in a metaphorical way, if you like. Finding ways to talk about these things within the limits of the image or the whatever, but it's and it's been hard to keep on the script, of what you write. You write something and then you make.
Oh yeah.
And the work I'm making right now, I'm quite pleased with it, but I'm not sure that the more I make it, the more it will be just like a really, really far away metaphor.
Right.
So I'm taking, I'm taking some things like I'm doing like a lot of images of water, and if I'm talking about fires, it's more about the red. I'm going with the colors,
Right.
red, blue, the elements, water, sky, and it's always this. In the water, I have a new series of just reflections and stuff like that. I mean, I have to show you.
Yeah,
But
I love to see it.
but it's all like a similar aesthetic to the white series. I'm going in that direction for sure.
Because I see them like very, there's a lot of, even if there you see a lot of white, I found them very poetic. And I see a lot of, a lot of information. You were saying that you are not thinking always in the viewer when you see the work. But I feel that in some way, when you see the images, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like I see you. I mean, I feel you. I feel that you were thinking in a way to transmit something more emotional, and that in that feeling, I found like the metaphor in some way.
Well, I'm glad you saw it. Some people don't see it. But
Well,
yeah, I mean, but that's what I was saying before in another question. Like when I find a successful image like that, I'm really in the moment, and I kind of see it before I take it. I don't know if that happens to you because you're also a photographer, but you kind of know that you have it when you're shooting it. In a way, like there's this thing you're capturing that is something you want to, that is aligned with what you want to say, and it's kind of more visceral than mental. But to get to that point, there's a lot of mental work that went into that. I don't know how to explain it, but
no, it's true. And you were mentioning something about edition, and sometimes I'm sure that you take like many shots of the same image, and there's just one that really transmits your idea or that emotion.
Yeah, like those white series. I think I had like 60 and I picked 6.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's the way it is. Yeah.
So that's the part I suffer when you have to pick the 6 out of 60, like 1 of 10. And it's really hard. And that's where I have to print them all and put them on the wall.
Right. Yeah.
But and it's kind of like to remember like that moment when I actually shot it, and what is that feeling like? Which one represents that idea or that feeling better?
Yeah.
But that's what I'm working on now, and I'll have new stuff to show soon.
Yeah, it's nice. So, well, I'm very glad that I was able to be here, and
yeah, I'm happy you came.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody else has any other questions from the people that is here in the Rodrigo, no, this is your chance.
Jane.
I just wanted to say hello. I've known Silvana since her days in school in New York, And so I've seen her work evolve over the years, and I just wanted to say I really love the new work. It
thanks.
really speaks to me now, having grown up in the Midwest, and these, I used to bury myself in a snowbank and be in this isolated world. So it's really beautiful and moving work.
Oh, thank you, Jane.
I actually have to get off because my daughter, I need to make dinner, but I just
Thanks for being here.
Me too. I have 2 kids, so I have.
Yeah, that way.
Well, thank you very much.
We have the same situation. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there's anything else, Rodrigo. No? Sí, Rodrigo.
Yeah, one more question.
Hi, thank you very much, Jimena and Salvador, for this, and Silvana for the great presentation.
Hi.
I just wanted to comment, it's a fantastic body of work.
Thank you.
The whole series of conversations with photographers for people who love photography, and I consider myself a person who loves photography, each of the presenters and yourself have brought a different perspective on how they do their work, and it's so interesting. Like looking at your images, the whole eye that you have for the whiteout exhibit, it's fantastic, and I really appreciate it. And also the backside of it, when you mention it's not that this kind of work, like not that particular, but when you were mentioning the different works that you've had that sometimes have not had the impact that you wanted, that it's not a question on the quality of the work or on the reception of the work, it's also on the onus of the artist to actually go out and put that work. And I think that's going to be something that is going to be of interest to many young photographers that are starting.
Yeah.
That because especially for once you're established, you still have to do it. And you were talking about that. You have recognition in Mexico, you have international recognition, and you still sometimes need to come out and say, this is what I'm doing, and put it on the map. But sometimes
it's hard, and it's still hard. Also, it's never easy to go out and like put yourself out there. It's always a challenge.
Definitely. And I think sometimes young artists think that if they create just by the fact of creating, they're gonna get out there, and they don't think about the whole promotion that needs to go into of their work. And I'm just glad to be a part and to be able to hear your experiences. I look forward to following your work, because I like photography, but I have to admit I wasn't as knowledgeable as I'm becoming through these conversations. And your work, I'm definitely gonna keep an eye on it and see what you can do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
And I don't know if there's anybody
else who would like to say something? No?
If not,
they all went to feed the children.
No, Silvana, thank you very much. Thank you, it was great.
Thank you for having me.
Very nice to have you. Thank you, Silvana.
Muchas gracias.
Sí, no, buenísimo.
See you soon.
We hope to see you soon.
Silvana, les mando un beso.
Igualmente.
Besos. Igual.
Gracias.
Chao, Fede. Chao.
Hasta luego. Bye, bye.
Hasta luego.
Bye, Carola. Bye.
Chao. Ya puedo colgar. Ya se fueron todos.
Ya se fueron, no, se quedó Rodrigo, Carola. Ya Carola también se fue. Bueno,
sigue el live en YouTube.
Sigue el live en YouTube, ya tengo que pararlo, sí es cierto.